This is the most expensive car the Hyundai Group sell in Australia, and the Genesis GV80 is worth every cent. The GV80 just might be the most luxurious and technologically packed SUV I've reviewed on this channel, and yet it's very reasonably priced for what you get. It seats 7, yet technically it's a mid-sizer, but it is kind of edging towards that large end of the market. The design language of the GV80 follows on from what we've seen in the recently refreshed G70 small sedan as well as the larger G80. So we've got this enormous American style grille with chrome. It just screams road presence and get out of my way. And then these two beautiful parallel thin LED front lights that wrap around the corner here. And this line actually continues throughout the entire length of the car through these side indicators right round to the back where the design is reflected in the rear light cluster. Two big creases here on the very large bonnet. It's a very American design, but it just has so much presence about it. In keeping with this car's big blingy exterior are huge 22-inch alloys that come as standard, and they match very nicely with these turn indicators. I love the Vic Black paint job on this car. It is mirror smooth and it just looks fantastic. And it's further accentuated by this chrome strip down the bottom here that reflects both the ground beneath it and also the paint job up on top. The only problem with this car, of course, is that on a windy spring day like today, where there's lots of pollen and dust flying through the air, it does tend to show everything up, so it can be a bit of a nightmare to keep clean. At the back is my favourite design element of the whole car. I'm talking about the rear light clusters. They've got a real 1970s Pontiac Trans Am feel to them. Underneath the powered tailgate is a 727 litre space, which expands to 2,144 with the second row of seats down. This car is a 7-seater, so if you've got all 3 rows up, then you're going to have a lot less space. Underneath the floor, there is no spare tyre, but you do get a tyre repair kit. There's also a breakdown kit with a high-vis vest and hand sanitizer and gloves and various other things you might need in the unlikely event of a breakdown. There's a first aid kit in there as well as a cargo net, plus a removable cover which you can put on top of the storage area here should you wish to hide your goods while you're away from your car. There's a few engines to choose from in the GV80 range, but this is the best of them. A 3.5 litre turbocharged V6 that outputs 279 kilowatts of power and 530 newton meters of torque. It's mated to an 8-speed gearbox and drives its power through all 4 wheels. 0 to 100 in just 5.5 seconds, which for an SUV this size is pretty impressive. And then of course there is the somewhat gimmicky feature which many of the Genesi can do, and that is the GV80 can maneuver itself in and out of a tiny little car space like mine without a driver behind the wheel. I never get tired of seeing that. The interior of this car perfectly matches the exterior, and where the sedan version of this car, the G80, maybe looked a little bit garish, here it is spot on. It looks so good, and there's a terrific mix of materials with leather, brushed aluminium, we've got open pore wood, in this case it's ash, all throughout the cabin, and it is rock solid. It feels really, really premium in here. Just like its sedan counterpart, the GV80 has a huge 14.5-inch center console screen, which just looks amazing. It is razor sharp, but there is so much customization and so much functionality available through this system that it's very easy to get lost in menus and sub-menus. You kind of do have to dig down through the menus to find some of the more basic functions, but the things you can control from here are pretty cool. Like for example, I can raise and lower the 3rd and 2nd row of seating from this screen. There's also Apple CarPlay and Android Auto, but unfortunately they're not wireless. You are going to need a USB cable to run those, but it's such a wide screen you can actually run multiple apps at the same time. The screen itself, of course, is set well back from the driver, so using it as a touch screen while you're driving isn't exactly practical. So there is a rotary dial down here, but I'll get to that in a minute. We've got some more beautiful leather with stitching up here on top of the dash, and then a row of air vents that run the full length of the dash. This is a design trend that we're seeing in a lot of new cars lately, and I think it looks awesome. And then we come to the climate controls, and this is going to sound like a bit of a weird weird sentence maybe, but I love these climate controls. I think they just work beautifully well, and it's such an elegant, simple piece of design. They've done a really good job on that. The lower middle console is all ash wood and brushed aluminium. It really feels nice. Under the sliding panel here, we've got wireless phone charging and USB inputs and a couple of cup holders, a rotary dial with haptic touch to control the center console screen, and another rotary dial here for the gear shifter, which changes colors with the ambient color temperature. Again, that's something else you can alter in the center console screen. A nice deep dual opening bin here with a removable tray, and the drive mode selector, which also doubles as the terrain mode selector. We've got a 12-inch head-up display in front of the driver, and then a full digital instrument cluster, which is the same as the one we saw in the G80 a few weeks ago. It changes with whatever drive mode you're in. You can customize it somewhat as well, and there's a very cool 3D effect, which you can't really see on camera here, but trust me, it looks pretty cool in the flesh. No maps, unfortunately, but you do get turn-by-turn directions from the navigation system, and also the speedo and the tachometer turn into blind spot camera screens when you turn the indicator on, which is actually a really cool function for checking a blind spot when you're in traffic. The only thing I don't like about this interior is the steering wheel. Now look, there's nothing wrong with the steering, and it feels great and it has a nice leather wrap around it. It's just the design. This wheel to me looks like something that comes out of a 1980s or 1990s American yank tank. It's a weird design. I don't really like it very much, but I do like the metal buttons on it, and the switches have a great feel to them as well. Then we come to the seats, which are full leather. They've got very nice stitching and piping. They're quilted leather, and they are so comfortable. 12 ways of electric adjustment. They are heated and ventilated, plus there's a massage function too. If you're a professional driver and you're going to spend all day behind the wheel, these are the seats you want to be sitting in. Trust me, they're great. Good seating position too, with great visibility out the front and in the blind spots too. Plenty of headroom up on top here, and of course looking up at that magnificent view through the double sunroof. And this sunroof actually retracts into itself. I'm not actually quite sure how they managed to do that, but it looks really cool. The back seat of the GV80 maybe isn't quite as roomy as I thought it might be. I seem to recall the G80 sedan maybe having a bit more space, but look, this is not bad. And just to further prove how much Genesis are really aiming this car at the professional driver / limousine market, rear seat passengers are not without every amenity they could ever want, including these fantastically comfortable quilted leather seats, which are fully electrically reclinable, and there's also a third zone of air conditioning back here, so rear seat passengers can set their own temperature, 2 USB outlets, a 12-volt outlet, a nice little vanity mirror with a lamp, plenty of headroom, and of course if you are being chauffeur driven around in the back of this car, you don't want to be exerting yourself having to block the sun out by manually lifting up a shade. No, we've got a little motor that will do that for you. So if you're going to be a rear seat passenger in the back of the Genesis GV80, I think you're going to be very comfortable indeed. One very cool feature that the navigation system has in this car is augmented reality. So using a camera at the front of the car, it shows the image on the center console screen but overlays it with directions, which is actually really good. It's actually one of the best nav systems I've found. The only problem with it is I, for the life of me, cannot work out how to turn it on. I've got it here in the B-roll that Genesis have sent me. It looks amazing, but I can't figure out how to turn it on. And that goes back to what I was saying before about the menus in this car just being really long and complicated and hard to find things that you need. It's very quiet in here, it's very refined. There's no disturbances from the outside world at all. There's just a little bit of road noise, but this is a particularly noisy stretch of freeway that I'm on at the moment. But it is very quiet in here, which is great because it allows you to really enjoy that epic sound system. 21 speakers. That's insane. The GV80 isn't all just about luxury though. It actually does have a good practical side to it as well. It's all-wheel drive, it rides up quite high, it can go off-road. There are various terrain modes for sand and mud and snow. It's quite capable. It also has a 2.7 ton brake towing capacity. I don't think there are going to be many GV80s out there doing very much towing, but it's good to know you can if you need to. Okay, 0 to 100 in the 3.5 litre twin turbo GV80 is officially 5.5 seconds. So let's flick the drive mode into sport. Oh, the bolsters in the seat are hugging me in tight. And here we go. yeah. You listen to that noise. Look, it doesn't sound quite as guttural or throaty or authentic perhaps as what you might hear in an Audi, but it's still really good. It's a pretty eye-catching car. It does get a lot of double takes just because it's quite exclusive, and by exclusive I mean they're not selling huge numbers of these, so you're not likely to see too many of the other Genesis on the road. But really they should be doing better because Genesis is fantastically well priced. The build quality is amazing and the cars are just awesome to drive. And it's always interesting when people ask you about it and you say, oh, well, it's Genesis. And they say, who's that? Well, it's Hyundai's luxury brand. People go, really? But it looks too good for that. And that's not to say Hyundais are ugly, but they're generally pretty utilitarian everyday cars. You don't expect to see something as good as this from Hyundai. It's a surprise. Like every Hyundai Kia car out there, the Genesis loves to talk to you and will alert you to every bus lane, speed camera, school zone, red light camera, wherever they are, even if they're not right in front of you. And it gets quite annoying. You can go into the menus and turn it all off. I just haven't had the spare 6 hours to do it yet.
In 400 meters, red light camera ahead.
Thank you. How can there be a red light camera in 400 meters? I'm on a freeway, there's no traffic lights.
200 meters, bus lane camera ahead.
Not in this lane!
Camera ahead.
It's not in this lane! Starting at just under $100,000 and about $30K more for how you see it here, the Genesis makes a very compelling argument for itself. So much so that if you're thinking about maybe getting an Audi Q7 or a BMW or a Range Rover, you should really sit down and have a serious conversation with yourself about the Genesis. Or better yet, just take one for a test drive. It's that good.